So, Daniel part 2, lesson 4, chapter 8. So, we threw this up here last time. And then we have the stone and the mountain. Let's see. We have our lion, our bear, our leopard. And remember that leopard had, so our bear had the 3 ribs. And he was kind of like up on one side, and the leopard had 4 heads and 4 wings. And then we had the great and terrible beast, and he had the 7 heads, and we had the 10 horns on one head. And then we have that little horn that came up and toppled 3. So we had 10 plus 1 equals 11, 11 minus 3 equals 8. And so these toes comported with those 10 horns on that 7th head. And we did Revelation 12 and 13, and we had that beast. That same, we had 2 beasts. We had the red beast, the dragon, with the 7 heads, and the, let me make sure I'm saying it right. Seven heads and 10 horns, and on his head were 7 diadems. And then we had that other beast that had the 7 heads and 10 horns, and on the horns there were the crowns. So there was a difference there. We ferreted out that red beast in Revelation chapter 12. That was Satan. The beast in chapter 13 was the Antichrist. So the beast is a synonym for Antichrist, and so is little horn. So Daniel's gotten information about the world empires: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And we call this revived Rome, so to speak, even though Rome's still kicking. So we have the beast. Revelation 12 gives us the power behind the beast, which is Satan. Revelation 13 gives us the beast, or what we call the Antichrist. It comports with that little horn. And we were also told about the false prophet. We call him the false prophet. We get that from another place in Revelation. That he causes worship of the beast and things like that. So here you have, we call it the unholy trinity. And we know that what followed Babylon was Medo-Persia because of Daniel chapter 5, but also just world history. And then we know that Greece conquered Medo-Persia, and then Rome conquered Greece as a world empire. So your 7 heads, in Revelation 17, it tells us that those heads on that beast that the woman is, or that the harlot is riding, are your 7 kingdoms. So in Revelation 17, the harlot is riding the beast. So we know there's 7 kingdoms. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Babylon conquered Egypt and Assyria to become the world empire. So whenever you open the Bible and you get to Genesis 12, where we're talking about Abraham, Egypt is the world empire because that's where everybody was going to during that, during famine and stuff like that. That's where everybody would go for help. They were large and in charge. After that, it was Assyria rose up. Egypt was still pretty strong, but Assyria took over Egypt and became the world empire. So Babylon and Assyria are called sisters. In, I think it's Isaiah. So they're sister nations. You study that out, and then, but Babylon conquered both of these to become the world empire. So that's why it's described as the head of gold. And he was over everything. He was made large and in charge, and God was giving information at this time to Daniel during these captivities. Basically, like, this is your future, this is what's going to happen. Hey, we're not done. And so all of this information about what's going to happen until we get to here, this stone is Christ. The stone cut without human hands. He comes, he crushes the statue. He takes out all the world empires. But then we're told in chapter 7 that the nations are allowed to remain for a little bit. That would be your millennial reign. So Christ is going to come at the end of the 7-year tribulation. At the end of times, and half a times. So we were told in Daniel 7 and in Revelation about the beast giving authority to act for times, and half times. A little horn in the beast, which is the Antichrist. And we know, we were told in Revelation 12 that Satan, the reason why that happens is Satan gets upset because he no longer has access to heaven, and so therefore he knows his time is short. So he gets upset with the woman, Israel, and her children, and he makes war with them. And so she has to flee for 1,260 days, which comports with times, and half times. And I believe we also got 42 months out of that. So, at the end of that, the beast is destroyed. That's when Christ comes. He's destroyed. So, and Christ will set up his kingdom. We also know from Revelation chapter 7 that he makes war with the saints, but the court sits and rule in favor of the saints, of the most highest one, and that they're given the kingdom as well. So in Revelation it tells us in chapter that we also, it says, thrones are set up and that we sit on them, as well as your tribulation saints. They resurrect and they sit on thrones as well. And so we're told that we will rule and reign with Christ in the millennial reign. But his dominion is forever and ever and ever and ever. So we have a millennial reign here on earth, and the purpose of that is to fulfill 3 covenants. Levitical, Mosaic, and Davidic. So, none of those covenants have to do with Gentiles. They have to do with Israel, with the Jewish nation. God is giving information about what's next through all of history until this to, yes, a Gentile king at first, but through that Gentile king to Daniel. So, do the things at the end here really have to do with us? Probably not. We're not going to be here. The New Testament tells us that, and the rapture is also in the Old Testament. So, this is the book of Daniel, the audience is the Jews. It's written for the Jews. Now we, as the church, this is where we get to lay down a timeline, and then we get to plug our little things into it and get to know things too. And then we can take our New Testament passages from Paul and start building a foundation. We take this and then we study Revelation and we plug in Revelation, and then we start taking our New Testament passages and even our Old Testament passages, and we get a whole timeline here. And there is Israel, the bride of the Father, and there's the church, the bride of Christ. And we're all kind of walking down a timeline together, but we have different spots on the timeline. So the church are people who come to Christ. So even if it's a Jew that has come to Christ, they're part of the church. We're in the church age. We'll all be raptured. But in this period of time, in what we call the 7-year tribulation, Matthew 24 tells us that there will be a time of great distress. That was one of your cross references. So, a time of great distress for the Jewish nation. Matthew 24, your audience, Jews, Israel. Yes, church gets a lot of information. It is written for the church, but Jesus was talking to Jewish disciples. What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So, there will be a time of great distress. So that's right there. Whenever you study this out, so your nation of Israel has not come into salvation yet. There have been individuals in the nation of Israel that has come into salvation, but they have not come into national salvation yet. So this is what this timeline is about. How do we get from point A to point B? And so what's happening here in Daniel's time, when we laid down all that history, is way back when Mount Sinai, they made that conditional covenant. And they were to be a light unto nations, and they weren't. They were doing all kinds of things, idolatry and stuff like that, and they had gone far away from God. And even though all these prophets before Daniel had prophesied about the Assyrian captivity and what was going to happen with the Babylonian captivity, they didn't listen. They just wanted to hear. They wanted their ears tickled. They wanted to hear what they wanted to hear, and, that this was okay, and this was okay, and then those people are crazy. Kind of like the things that we're hearing today. Well, God did what he said he was going to do, and he did put them into captivity under King Nebuchadnezzar. But he also had promised back in Deuteronomy that, yes, if you do this, I'm going to do this. Basically, when you do this, I'm going to do this. But I'm also going to redeem you. So this is here's Daniel He was taken in the first captivity. Now, through his lifetime, he's seen the rest of it. We can go into Ezekiel and put that on a timeline and stuff like that. And now that we're in the Medo-Persian Empire, we know that all 3 sieges under Nebuchadnezzar have happened, just as God said they would. In fact, the back end of Ezekiel, 3rd siege has happened. And so the rest of it is about redemption, about your millennial reign. So here's Daniel sitting here, and he's like, okay. He's being told, yeah, you're in captivity, but this is how you're going to get down to here, your Messiah. But there's some other things that are going to happen. And they're not going to be great. And there's a reason for it. It's not because God is just mean and mad and all that kind of stuff. It's because of a lack of repentance. Okay, here's the deal. If the nation of Israel had accepted Christ as Messiah when he came the first time, it would have all been over with. We cannot get mad, because if they had done that and it was all over with, we wouldn't have the chance to come into relationship with him.
Jen, is that why there's all this anti-Semitic? I mean, where did all that
Yes.
come from?
So
Because,
yes,
I mean,
people get jealous because why are the Jews apple of his eye? Why aren't we? It's like, so sibling rivalry. We even have it within the church, sibling rivalry. Or it's, yes, they crucified Jesus. It's like, okay, no, their leadership had Jesus crucified. Those leaders back then had Jesus crucified. So you can't just lump everybody together. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, look, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, why do we lump people today that when their nation or whatever did something bad way back when, but yet we like put it on people today? So yes, and the anti-Semitism today is a means to an end, because it's that kingdom now theology, NAR, that the church has replaced Israel, dominion theology, and it's also like it's a whole thing.
I think a lot of people who don't even know what they are. Like, I hear younger people just because it was like, oh, that's a Jew.
Yeah.
Like, do you really know why or what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. No. And
No, you don't.
and
So it stems back from they sent him to the cross.
yes, and it's like no, we honestly, we all did.
Sin.
I mean, just because the leaders of that nation at that time did that does not mean that we should hate the descendants. We should love them and want to bring them to Christ. I mean, the thing is, I mean, whenever you start really thinking about things, like a lot of people are like, oh, well, is Hitler or Jeffrey Dahmer in heaven? Well, I hope so. Because, I mean, you think about forever in the lake of fire. Do you really want that for anybody, or would you rather them have redemption? I would rather them have redemption. And there's a book by C.S. Lewis, and it's not like, you can't take like theology from it totally, because it's like about the living interacting with the dead and things like that. But it was I can't remember what it was called. No, maybe it was The Great Divorce, about, yes. And they could go like up and down and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, no, don't take theology from that. It's just a story to make a point.
Right.
And about all the little things that we set up, and think that anyway, it's really good. But the one that I'm thinking about is the lady that, like, her husband was very bitter for how she acted in her, earthly life, but the joy she had in heaven. And he was so bitter, and she couldn't get him to experience the joy. And so it was, you want that you want the joy for people. You want them to be redeemed. You want them to come to Christ. Because the main problem of why they did all those things is because they were without. And we have to have the heart of God. God wants them redeemed. And if he can redeem, well, anyone, but I mean, his wife, okay,
we
so what?
wouldn't have a clean heart if we didn't want people redeemed.
Exactly. Like, yeah, we don't wish bad on people. We want them redeemed. We want to see a turnaround. Jesus gives, like, the only biblical reason for divorce is adultery, but Israel committed adultery by committing idolatry.
Yeah.
But what is God going to do? He's going to redeem her.
Yes.
And that's the book of, trying to think of that. Can't remember it. Haggai? Or maybe it's another one, where he tells him to go marry a prostitute. And she continues to be a prostitute. And it's a picture of redemption.
Mm-hmm.
It's a picture of him and his relationship with Israel and her redemption. And that's why. I can't remember. That's
I don't
bad.
know if I've read that one.
Yeah. It's one of the minor prophets. But anyway, so he has a plan. And so what he's doing here in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 is he's showing Daniel the plan. This is what's going to happen. Like, yeah, Nebuchadnezzar, this is what's going to happen in the future. But Daniel, this is what's going to happen with your people in the future. So after this vision, he was like, whoa, whoo, whoo, whoo. His reaction, it was just, and so we want to take that number 1. It's, let me go back to 7. Because he wasn't like going and running out in the streets. Guys, I had a vision. He knew that what he was being shown was very serious. And he said, at this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming me and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter to myself. So there's a difference.
Because hadn't you already heard about it before?
Well, he knew.
Knew of it?
Mm-hmm. Through 2, he knew this part, and now he's getting more details in 7. And this great and terrible beast is deeply alarming. And so that was in the first year of Belshazzar. So whenever you head into 8, in the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar the king, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, subsequent to the one which appeared to me previously. So he knew this vision had to do with the one in 7. This is 2 years later. I looked in the vision, and while I was looking, I was in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam, and I looked in the vision, and I myself was beside the Ulai Canal. Then I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a ram, which had 2 horns, was standing in front of the canal. Now the 2 horns were long, but one was longer than the other, with the longer one coming up last. Okay. Oh boy. So there's my ram. Oh well, he needs a head.
So you have the sheet.
Okay, and so this one came up last. And I saw the ram budding westward and northward and southward, and no other beast could stand before him, nor was there anyone to rescue from his power. But he did as he pleased, and he magnified himself. Okay, so we have our ram. I should have. No, well, I'll do it later. So he magnified himself. While I was observing, behold, a male goat was coming from the west over the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. Let's see. There's his eyes, and he has a horn. He came up to the ram that had the other two horns, which I had seen standing in front of the canal, and rushed at him in his mighty wrath. And I saw him come beside the ram, and he was enraged at him, and he struck the ram and shattered his two horns, and the ram had no strength to withstand him. So he hurled him to the ground and trampled on him, and there was none to rescue the ram from his power. Then the male goat magnified himself exceedingly, but as soon as he was mighty, the large horn was broken. So this guy takes out those two horns, and then this guy, he magnifies himself, but then his horn is broken. And in its place came up four conspicuous horns towards the four winds of heaven. Okay. So you have in 1 through 4, you have Daniel's vision of the ram. 5 through 8, you have Daniel's vision of the goat. And so it's really following the same literary flow as the rest of the chapters. You get the vision, and then you're going to get the interpretation. Okay, so out of one of them came forth a rather small horn. We're going to make it smaller. So we're going to call him the rather small horn. Which grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the beautiful land. It grew up to the host of heaven and caused some of the host and some of the stars to fall to the earth, and it trampled them down. It even magnified itself to be equal with the commander of the host, and it removed the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. And on account of transgression, the host will begin to get over to the horn along with the regular sacrifice, and it will fling truth to the ground and perform its will and prosper. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to the particular one who was speaking, "How long will the vision about the regular sacrifice apply? While the transgression causes horror, so as to allow both the holy place and the host to be trampled." And he said to me, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the holy place will be properly restored." Okay. All right. So we have some comparisons and some contrast. So we have this little horn that speaks out against God. That he's boastful and he speaks out. And now we have this rather small horn. Who is doing some stuff. He's even magnified itself to be equal with the commander of the host, remove the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Now, at the end of this, we're told, then the holy place will be properly restored. Okay, so what's the holy place?
Temple.
It's earth, right?
Well, what would be the holy place to Daniel?
The temple.
Israel.
Yeah, the
The
temple.
temple.
The temple in Israel, in Jerusalem. Is there a temple in Jerusalem during the 3rd year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon? Mm-mm. During the 3rd Babylonian siege under King Nebuchadnezzar, the temple was absolutely destroyed. It was obliterated, so there is no temple. Oh, there's going to be a temple. There's going to be a temple, there's going to be a sacrifice, there's going to be things going on, but this guy, this rather small horn, is going to put a stop to it. He is allowed, the things that he is going to do with changing or putting a stop to it is going to last for 2,300 days. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. Well, let me see. Okay, so then this one, 9 through 14, we're going to call it the rather small horn. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it, and behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man. And I heard the voice of a man between the banks of the Ulai, and he called out, and he said, Gabriel, give this man an understanding of the vision. So he came near to where I was standing, and when he came, I was frightened, and fell on my face. But he said to me, Son of man, understand that the vision pertains to the time of the end. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, to the end of what? All right, so (15 through 17). One who looked like a man. Told Gabriel to interpret. Oh, one who looked like a man. Chapter 7. One like a son of man. He face planted when he saw this one. When this one came up to him, he face planted. All right. I have Jesus tells Gabriel to interpret. It's a theophany. Pre-incarnate. Pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. So, now, while he was talking with me, I sank into a deep sleep with my face to the ground, but he touched me and made me stand upright. That's how I get to this as a theophany. Gabriel comes to Mary, he's like, just don't be afraid. Gabriel comes along, talks to people, it's like, don't be afraid. Nobody's face planting. This is different.
So you said it's a pre-incarnate what of Christ? Encounter?
Appearance, yeah.
Or appearance?
Yeah. So it made me stand upright, and he said, "Behold, I'm going to let you know what will occur at the final period of the indignation, for it pertains to the appointed time of the end." Okay, so what will occur at the final period of the indignation? What's the indignation?
When it comes back.
What does indignation mean?
To be upset.
Mm-hmm. So there's a period of indignation. Who would be upset? Who would be indignant and who would be upset and why? Well, yeah, he gets upset. Yeah,
People that get
but
left behind.
well, well, I mean, why is Daniel in captivity? Why is Daniel serving Babylon? Who's upset? God.
Yeah.
God's upset and indignant. And they're in a 70-year captivity because of it. However, we know from history that there are other things that have happened to the nation of Israel, to the Jews, the Holocaust, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go, it's replete throughout history, the persecution of the Jews. And it will be that way, we were told in chapter 7, till the end. Until Christ comes and sets up his kingdom. So, there are two parts to the indignation. There's the 70 years, and then there's the rest of time until Christ comes for his millennial reign. And I just love this. The ram which you saw with the two horns represents the kings of Media and Persia. Pretty simple. So we skipped the lion. We're on, he's talking about the kings of Media and Persia.
Bear.
Yes, so that comports with the
Yeah.
bear and the three ribs. And your
Yeah.
horns are, your big one is Persia and the small one is Media. And Persia really grew stronger during that time. So that's what that, I was looking at that later. Oh boy, the shaggy goat represents the kingdom of Greece. And that large horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Oh my gosh, now we're really cooking with peanut oil. So that comports with that leopard. Do you see the four and the four? The four horns, the four heads, the four wings. The leopard, it was moving fast. The first horn is the first king who was the first king of Greece? Alexander the Great. So he died at like age 33. He got really upset and depressed because there was nothing else left to conquer. And I think he got, did he get worms or something like that? Yeah, and died. So he died young. The broken horn and the four horns that arose in its place represents four kingdoms which will arise from his nation, although not with his power. in the latter period of their rule, when the transgressors have run their course, a king will arise, insolent and skilled in intrigue. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. And he will destroy to an extraordinary degree and prosper and perform his will. He will destroy mighty men and the holy people, and through his shrewdness he will cause deceit to succeed by his influence. And he will magnify himself in his heart, and he will destroy many while they are at ease. He will even oppose the prince of princes, but he will be broken without human agency. The vision of the evenings and mornings, which is told, was true, but keep the vision secret, for it pertains to many days in the future. Then I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for days, and then I got up again and carried on the king's business. But I was astounded at the vision, and there was none to explain it.
So then is that Greece? For
Yes.
Babylon?
Yes. So this is Greece. Yeah, in their interpretation, they showed that this one was Medo-Persia, that this one was Greece. Now, in the other visions, it was, we started up here with Babylon, and then we got down to Medo-Persia, and then went all the way to Greece, Rome, and then all the way down to millennial reign. Same thing, chapter 7, all the way, and gave a little more detail in between. Now, in chapter 8, did we ever go into any other empire? No, we just stayed with Medo-Persia and Greece. We never went into Rome. So Daniel is getting information only about Medo-Persia and Greece, and he's getting information about the first king, which is Alexander the Great, and he died young. He did not have an heir. I read some history that he actually might have had a baby, or his wife or whoever had a baby, but that they might have killed it. Somebody might have killed it after he died. But his kingdom was parceled out between his 4 generals. But what was that?
Nothing over here, I don't know.
I think it's those ears.
Oh, he probably dropped something.
Oh, God.
Okay.
It's just like,
I was like, no,
he's
you're
still
not.
my pardon, he's not here.
Yeah.
It's like, oops.
Yeah. So it's parceled out between his 4 generals. And it's, I think it's like Sychamus, Lysander, there's 2 of them, but the ones that it's the Ptolemy was one of them. And he took Egypt, so it was divided. You have north, south, east, and west. And so, it was, I think it was Cassander and like Sychamus took either one of these. But Ptolemy took Egypt. And the Seleucids took Syria. Syria is north, Egypt is south. So you have your 4 generals that the empire was dispersed to, And then in one of these empires, you had a rather small horn. We're still in Greece. We are nowhere else. So there's a difference here. In chapter 7, this horn on this beast is called the little horn. The horn on this goat is called a rather small horn. There is a difference. Whenever you get information about this and the time he has to act is times, and half a times, which is 1,260 days, as we found out in Revelation. But your rather small horn, the things he does is 2,300 days. There's a difference. Okay. We're not in Rome in chapter 8. Nowhere near it. This is sprouting off of the Seleucid Empire. So this, under the Seleucid Empire, a ruler rose up. His name was Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth.
Just call
Say
it
that.
Yeah, it was Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth, and he was a real bag of tricks. He took the empire by intrigue, and he was not a good person. And he came into Jerusalem. So whenever Alexander the Great conquered Jerusalem, he didn't do much there, because they came out of the temple and showed him Daniel. So, oh, we knew you're coming. I mean, they probably didn't say it like that, but they were like, yeah, you were prophesied. He liked that, so he let them just keep doing their thing. Now, later on, this rather small horn, he came to them and he wanted to Hellenize them. So Hellenization is basically what we see in our society today, what man can do. It's your arts, it's your sports, it's this and that. We know the Olympics were born out of Greece, what man can do. And they would, you know, if you look at your ancient history, they didn't wear clothes when doing the Olympic Games, which was a huge no-no for the Jews. But they wanted to Hellenize the Jews and things like that. And if you did not participate or whatever, it was a problem. Then they started telling the Jews, you can't circumcise your babies. And they would literally, if they did, they would hang the dead baby around your neck as punishment. This guy was horrible.
And which guy is this?
This is Antiochus Epiphanes
Oh.
the Fourth. Horrible, horrible, horrible. He also, so this times, or this, you know, getting rid of the regular sacrifice and all that kind of stuff, he also put a statue of Zeus in the temple and sacrificed a pig on the altar. So he desecrated the temple. So we call it the Apocrypha, and the Apocrypha shows up in the Catholic Bible, and they're just kind of extra books. There's a couple of books about Daniel in there. They have nothing to do with doctrine or the whole like story or whatever, but you have the book of Maccabees. So Judas Maccabeus, he was like, and there was an uprising, took care of this guy, and then they had to cleanse the temple because of what he did with setting up Zeus and slaughtering the pig and things like that. So whenever they got this taken care of and got this, and it was, I think this comports with like about 5.5 years or something like that, these numbers. So it was a while that all of this was going on, that he was terrorizing the Jews that would not basically bow down.
And he came after Alexander?
Yes. He came out of one of the, so the Syrian Empire he came out of. Because he died, he didn't have an heir, either he didn't have one or they killed it. And so the four generals, they parceled out the empire. The Seleucids took Syria, the Ptolemies took Egypt. Why do I care about the Ptolemies? Oh, you will in chapter 11. So the other two, it was like Cassander and Lysicanus or something like that took the others. So this guy, so the Maccabees, they had to cleanse the temple. And in lighting, going to light what we would call the menorah or the lampstand, the oil that they used had to be purified for like 7 days. They only had enough oil for one. Yet the lampstand still stayed lit until they got the oil purified. So they call it the miracle of the oil and the Feast of Lights. We call it Hanukkah. I am the light of the world, is what Jesus said. So there are some of us that believe Jesus was conceived during the Festival of Lights. Jesus celebrated the Festival of Lights in the Gospels. So, whenever you're having your fried donuts, that's why they do the lattes and the fried donuts and stuff like that, because it's the miracle of the oil. So, this happened under the Greek Empire. So God is showing Daniel what's going to happen with his people. And this is very important, and this is one of the reasons why I'm like, hey, we didn't go into Rome. The rest of these went into Rome. This one doesn't. Why? Because God is showing him there's more. So in this part, when it's saying the time of the end, you have to say what end? Oh, there's two parts to the indignation. There's the 70 years that's about to end. We'll see that when we get to chapter 9. There's the 70 years that's about to end. It ended in chapter 5, basically, whenever Medo-Persia took over Babylon. Because historically we know that Medo-Persia under Cyrus, they were allowed to go back and rebuild. So there's no temple in Daniel's time, but he's told there is going to be a temple, but this is what this rather small horn, this is what he's going to do.
So this 2300, that is the evenings and mornings.
Mhm.
That's where he talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
I have down here that was approximately 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
From the last
Yeah.
thing.
It was, it was about 5 to 6
So
years.
is that part of the rest of it, or is it part of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you have the 70 years,
Right.
and this is when I was like, oh my gosh, there's two parts of the indignation. There's the 70 years, and then I call it the rest of it, from here to the end of time, because more happens.
So when you're talking about the end, you're talking about both the 70 years and the rest of it?
No, basically the
You're
rest
just
of it.
talking about
Yeah,
the
the
rest
final
of it.
period of the
Okay.
indignation. And he quantifies that in there whenever he says that. He's talking about the final period of the indignation. And I was like, that made me stop like years ago, and I was like, oh, wait. Just like there's about 3 or 4 parts to the first resurrection that happen over time. And so we know, and so what's the indignation about? Judgment. God's judgment, because they're not, bowing the knee. Well, what's judgment about? Why does God bring about judgment? Is it just to punish everybody and no.
It's all about judgment.
It's about trying to get people to bow the knee. Because he wishes for no one to perish. And we know from history that, more has happened since then. That the Jews have been persecuted. The thing is, it's all part of walking down that timeline, and God will, he puts people in, he raises kingdoms and things like that, but he'll put people in positions for certain purposes, but he will also judge those people in those positions as well. Just like with Babylon. Yeah, I used Babylon to put you in captivity, but they went too far. We're going to judge Babylon. That's in Isaiah. All the nations throughout, whenever you're like doing 1st and 2nd Samuel and Kings and Prophets, and nations that God has brought up against Israel for whatever reason, he's upset about something, to get them to, come to, replete in Scripture how he's going to judge them too for what they did to Israel, because they took it too far. So we never get to the Roman Empire in here, and the reason why I'm really harping on this is because a lot of people say that chapter 8 is Antichrist, and it's not. It's not. It's absolutely not. It's Antiochus Epiphanes IV. So they take this number, this 2300, and they try to apply it and make up stuff. And it's like, no, we're not making up stuff. We're sticking with history. This happened. It's done. This was in the Greek Empire. We didn't get to Rome. Did not get to Rome. So, now, will the Antichrist do things like this? Sure. Because this guy is a foreshadow of the Antichrist. Even my pastor teaches that this is Antichrist, and I'm like, no. But I can play along as far as listening, because I'm like, yeah, okay, the Antichrist is going to do those things. He ascribes to Genesis 5 as the fallen angels. Anyway, I'm like, no. Look at the literary part. So I disagree with him on some things. But people will really take this out of context and put some things on there. So we've been given a really good timeline here through all this. So we have Babylon, we have Medo-Persia, we have Greece, we have Rome, and then we have our 10 kings that were at this moment in history. We're seeing the world converging to those 10 kings. Now, we know that these 10 kings, that this little horn is going to rise up, and he's going to topple 3. And then he's going to become large and in charge, and Satan's going to give him his power, and then he's going to be given authority to act times, half a times, 1,260 days, 42 months. That's 3.5 years. This was 5 to 6 years. It doesn't match. It's not the same. And it is so subtle, because you would think, well, little horn, rather small horn, it's a small little horn. But the way Scripture presents it, it's a little horn and a rather small horn. There is a difference, and there's a difference in time.
Sounds like you're rather small, and smaller than small.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Using whatever Hebrew word it was that we would get English rather small horn, it definitely the connotation is it's not this guy. And there's Daniel's writing this either with his own hand or through a scribe. He's making a distinct difference, and we're getting distinct differences in times. So, this, and Antiochus, he didn't die of, I think it was some illness or something like that. So 18 through 26. Of Gabriel interprets. Okay. So I'm going to go back over this real quick because I do have, it says, now while he was talking with me, I went to a deep sleep on my face, and took around and touched me, and made me stand upright. And behold, I am going to let you know what will occur at the final period of the indignation.
We don't know.
He said it was
We thought it was
Crockett, but I don't know what Crockett would have done.
No, I heard it too. I thought it was something fell off the board or.
It was loud and it sounded like it was right here.
Okay, so there is an indignation, and there is a final period of the indignation. And there is the first period, which was the 70 years. And so he's telling us what will happen in the final period until the end. But there's the end and there's the final period. We're getting told about what's happening in the Greek Empire. But we know from history there's more. There was a Holocaust, and we know we're told that there's going to be more at this times, and half a times.
So the final period is in the Greek Empire?
Is it would be after the 70-year.
Yeah.
Now they had it good under the Medo-Persian Empire because Cyrus let them go back and rebuild, and they built the city again, and he paid for a lot of it. They rebuilt the temple. Now it was under time of duress. The neighbors weren't too happy about it. That's like your Ezra and your Nehemiah and things like that. And then the Greek Empire, everything was okay until this guy. And then it wasn't. Roman Empire, whenever they took over, that's actually how we get the Palestine, the word Palestine, is they would, whenever they conquered a territory, they would name that territory after their enemies. Philistines.
Yeah.
Philistines, Palestine. So they were allowed to still worship in their temple, and they put Herod over the Jews. He was not Jewish. He was Idumean. He was from Esau. And so he would pander to the Jews, and that's why he built up the temple, because he wanted to gain their respect. And they call it Herod's temple because he's the one that really built it to all the grandeur. And whenever the disciples were like, "Hey, look at that! Look at," and Jesus is like, "Hey, look, one stone's not going to be left on another." So during the Roman Empire, after Jesus was crucified on the cross, it was a whole thing. The Romans didn't like that because, well, the Jews really didn't like it. But the problem is that the Jews were, this is a political problem, the Jews were grandfathered in. So here come the Christians saying, Messiah's come and stuff like that. And the Romans are looking at this as a new religion, which is seen as treason. Because in your ancient cultures, if you did not worship their gods, then you were seen as you were against the empire. So the Jews were grandfathered in, and they didn't have to worship the Roman gods, but the Christians coming along were a problem. Well, the Christians, and rightly so, were saying, this was just an extension of Judaism. And the Jews are like, no, it's not. And, they're following Paul, they're upset, they're following Paul everywhere and chasing him around. This is all the political stuff going on. And so it was a whole thing. Well, Rome, they were persecuting so the Pharisees and, under Paul and stuff like that, they were persecuting the Christians and stuff like that. Well, then Rome turned against the whole lot, Christians and Jews. And then the Jews were scattered again across the earth. And they wound up in different places across the world, but in those different places, especially in Europe and things like that, I mean, you had the pogroms in what country was that? Forgot. And then you had the Holocaust. But after the Holocaust, do you remember your history, your United States history?
Some.
We were isolationist, right?
Mm-hmm.
We weren't going to get involved.
Right.
How did God get us involved?
The Abraham.
Pearl Harbor.
Oh, Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
All right. It was not going well. Once the United States got in there, then, France would have been speaking German.
Exactly.
But it was the Americans that came in and let the Jews out of the concentration camps. And then in 1948, Israel was made a nation again under, the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
What was it called?
the Balfour Declaration. So God kept his promise back then to restore them as a nation. Now they're on their land. Now they're a nation. There's the Palestine that came from the Romans calling them by their enemies.
Yeah.
So using that term now is a slur, honestly. But they were made a nation, and all of a sudden, their neighbors weren't happy, even though there was really nothing going on in the land. I mean, there were Bedouins running around and stuff like that, but there wasn't a nation there. There wasn't a nation that was conquered. But the neighbors weren't happy. And so there's been wars and stuff like that. Iran has been threatening to blow them off the face of the map for a very long time. Prophecy World has always talked about that. And that's leading up to the whole alliance that we see now with Russia, Iran, and Turkey is leading up to end times. You're going to see in chapter 11 why these nations, Syria and Egypt, are important. They're in the news today.
They're in the news today?
They're in the news today. Russia's usually camped out in Syria.
They want Syria, don't they? I mean, Russia wants Syria.
They're friends with Syria. Yeah. So it's a whole thing. So Daniel really lays down a lot of tracks as far as world history and what's going to happen with the Jewish nation throughout world history. And we can fill in gaps that aren't in the Bible with world history. And I can look at this final period of indignation, and yeah, I have the end, which will be the end with this stone, with Christ, but I got a whole final period of indignation that the Greek Empire was not too kind. And even under the Medo-Persian Empire, the neighbors weren't happy, and they had to build with swords strapped to them. And so the Greek Empire, this really bad thing happened, which was a foreshadow of the Antichrist. And then in Rome, the persecutions that happened. In 70 AD, the Romans tore down that temple. Not one stone was left upon another. And then just going throughout the rest of world history. And Christ hasn't come yet. So this all really is laying down your tracks. So whenever we get to Revelation, we're going to be able to drop all of this in. So in 27, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say there was none to explain it. So he gets the interpretation, but all these things, it's like he's getting. So if you look at this, it's like, okay, yeah, there is going to be these world empires until Messiah. Okay, now we get in 7 and we get a little more information, and this beast really throws him in a knot. This really upsets him. And his reaction in 7 was, and why would it be upsetting to Daniel if it didn't pertain to his nation?
When I read something about someone else, I get upset and sad. And
Well, yeah, but
so-
he knew that he knew there was more to it. So at this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming, and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter to myself. So then in 8, his reaction is, then I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for days, and then I got up again and carried on the king's business. But I was astounded at the vision, and there was none to explain it.
So, but what's the difference between explaining and interpreting? Gabriel interpreted it for him, so what's the difference between explaining and interpreting?
So he got the interpretation of these are the empires, and this is going to happen in the Greek Empire. But why are we still in indignation?
Oh, so that's the explanation that he. Okay.
Yes, because in his mind, we'll see in the next chapter, he's going to read Jeremiah and realize that the end of the 70 years of captivity are done.
Does he get to go home now?
Daniel does not.
He never gets to go home. He just did all those great things.
Yeah, I mean, part of the, as far as the thought behind that is he was just old at that point, that the trip would have been.
But how old would that be? Because they lived to be 500, 600, 700 years old. I mean,
That was
come
in
on.
Genesis.
Well, nobody
Yeah.
was living that old then. Now it's over.
No.
It's done. When did they stop living that old? I was wondering back how many years I've missed it.
Yeah, after Noah,
Yeah.
pretty
Oh,
much
after
life
Noah.
expectancy.
Dropped.
Yeah.
Why?
They started eating meat.
No, I said,
Well,
no,
God shortened their lives.
Yeah.
From now on, you guys aren't gonna live as long.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who has the meat to eat?
No, I agree, but I think before then, wasn't it? When did we start eating meat?
It was after the flood.
Oh, so really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was after the flood he gave us meat to eat. Before we.
That's Joseph's favorite kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too. I'm a meat
Oh,
person.
no, I am too.
Yeah, I'm a meat
Yeah.
person.
I just thought that, I didn't.
I thought we always had meat. I mean, he gave us the fruits and the vegetables and the.
Well,
The
no, we had
things
everything
are
in the
right.
garden. There were no.
Were there birds in it? Were there birds in the garden? Did people eat
Yeah,
birds?
so
That's meat.
before the flood,
Was steak?
before and during the flood, I guess I should say, animals were sacrificed
I knew that.
for because the blood of animals will cover sin. It was a picture, but then whenever we after the flood, he gave them meat to eat.
So what would they do that would, I mean, I know you don't really know, but maybe in history, but did they, just the animal would rot there? I mean,
They burned it.
they burned it totally.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
that's
cook
right.
it, they burned
That's
it.
right, they burned it, that's right, okay.
Yeah, and I mean,
I didn't fully think that.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. When did cows come into being?
So, yeah.
Always giving us what we need, and when we need it.
Is there anything else? So chapter 8, your chapter theme, to put, let's go for a good one. I mean, you could put, you know,
I just have a vision.
Every
of
animal-
Rambo.
Daniel was distressed.
or,
Daniel's vision of Ram and Goat exhausted him.
what will occur at the final period of the indignation? Okay. So, any questions about 8 or anything before I stop recording and sign off? Nope, we're good? Okay.